Ayatollah Khomeini, you seem to have had some success, you and your followers, in changing the government in Tehran. Do you have any feeling for how long it may be before there is an Islamic State in Iran?
وقت نزدیک است.
It is very close, and very soon we will announce a new government.
The Iranian Revolution was a major conflict in Iran during the 1970s that led to the overthrowing of its then current government. To those watching, you may know much about it, you might not know much at all. Today, we are going to examine the Iranian Revolution and all of the factors leading into it, as well as its consequences and outcomes. The Iranian Revolution can be seen as a clash between two prominent figures. One, the Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, and the other, the Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. Pahlavi was the monarch of Iran at the time of the revolution. Khomeini was a devout Muslim and Iranian statesman. He was officially appointed the rank of Ayatollah in the early 1960s. Khomeini led the people of Iran who held disdain for the Shah and wanted to restore Iran to a proper Islamic republic. Khomeini was exiled by Pahlavi on multiple occasions, but his presence and leadership were felt during the time of the revolution. The White Revolution was a period of economic growth in the 1950s and 1960s. This led to the westernization and reform of Iran under the leadership of the Shah Pahlavi. Many Shiite Muslim leaders were unpleased with the White Revolution for contradicting and going against traditional Islamic ways. Let's take a look at the specific reasons why.
Farmlands on which the country's economy greatly depends. Under the personal direction of the Shah, Iran was just recovering from this tragedy when its latest troubles erupted. Ironically, one of the causes of the new rioting was the Shah's land reform program instituted to ease the lot of the country's impoverished peasants at the expense of large landholders. A secondary contributing trouble factor was the Shah's plans for the emancipation of the nation's women. Rioting against this program was led by leaders of a strict Muslim sect opposed to women's suffrage.
As mentioned in this clip, the White Revolution was one of the inciting events that led to the widespread disapproval of Pahlavi, as well as the eventual revolution. Many of the Iranian people who revolted alongside Khomeini were members of the Freedom Movement of Iran, an Iranian nationalist organization that believed in a traditional Islamic state. Prior to the revolution, they assisted in the coup d'etat to overthrow Prime Minister Mossadegh. In the 1960s, they were part of numerous demonstrations and protests against the Shah. Leading up to the Iranian Revolution, they became allies with Khomeini and mobilized with other revolutionaries to overthrow the Shah in hopes of transforming Iran into their image. Let's go back in time and take a little glimpse of the Freedom Movement with a rallying cry from the Freedom Movement Secretary, General Mehdi Bazargan.
امروز برای ایران می‌جنگیم، برای فیوچر بهتر می‌جنگیم، برای اسلام. ما وای نمی‌سیم. امروز برای ایران می‌جنگیم، برای فیوچر بهتر می‌جنگیم، برای اسلام می‌جنگیم. می‌سیم تا شاه رفته. آماده ای که بنجنگیم واسه اینکه من هستم. آره. ما وای نمی‌سیم تا شاه رفته. آماده ای که بجنگیم واسه اینکه من هستم. آره. آره.
Uprising by the people of Tabriz. In the earliest days of the revolution, many demonstrations and uprisings took place. A significant demonstration that occurred was the Tabriz protests. On February 18, 1978, citizens of Tabriz, Iran, gathered to protest for economic hardships, political grievances, and hopes of demanding change. Among the protesters were local political and religious leaders. The protests started out peaceful, but began to escalate as protesters confronted police and other authorities. Following the protests, many were arrested and faced prison time, trials, and other consequences. However, the protests were successful in urging some of the members of the Iranian government to focus on the needs of the people protesting. Another prominent demonstration was the Jail Square Massacre, which is also known as Black Friday. It occurred on September 8, 1978, and it was a large demonstration held to express opposition against the Shah. Many Shia Muslims felt that they were under oppression under the Shah's rule. It turned violent when the Iranian military forces arrived and 250 were killed. The massacre prompted more people to join the side of the Khomeini and the revolution. After months of violence and turmoil, the Shah fled Iran, resulting in the victory for Khomeini and his followers, leading to Iran's return to a proper Islamic state. Khomeini formed the Islamic Republican Party, which is a political party to govern the country and ensure Islam would thrive. Under Khomeini, the separation of church and state came to an end. Despite the end of the revolution, Iran remained prominent on the world stage in various ways. Iranian hostage crisis. One of the most notable hostage crises in modern times occurred when the Iranian government began to hold American diplomats hostage on November 4th, 1979. The taking of American hostages was in response to the United States welcoming the Pahlavi after his departure from Iran. The hostage crisis worsened tensions among the United States and Iran, but the hostages were ultimately released on January 20th, 1981, the day President Carter left office. The Iranian hostage crisis can be seen as a moment of strength for Iran and Khomeini, showing the rest of the world they are a ruthless country.
The longer the Shah stays in America, the longer these people get held hostage in my country. Your move, Mr. President Carter.
Mr. President, there are families and friends there that are being held hostage. What are you doing about the hostage crisis?
We're making sure that the hostages remain safe, and we're doing everything we can to make sure they're released in a timely manner. We are working with State Department, Department of Defense to come up with a good solution.
Do you know anything about the condition of the hostages?
Well, as far as we're concerned, they're in danger, but they are safe. They're in danger, but just remember that they are safe, and that the hostages will be released soon.
Mr. President, do you think that the hostage crisis puts Iran in a stronger position against the United States?
I guess so. I'm President Carter. I didn't want this to happen. Like, come on. Like, what are we doing?
Day one. Day one of Ronald Reagan's presidency, and day one of freedom for 52 Americans. Though thousands of miles apart, these two historic events moved almost on parallel tracks today. The new president had not been in office an hour when the former hostages became free men and women again. And they are well along now on their trip to West Germany and eventually to home.
Cultural Revolution in Iran. In the aftermath of the revolution, the restoration of traditional Iranian and Muslim values took place within a cultural revolution. The Iranian government took measures to eliminate westernized material and aspects out of the Iranian institutions such as schools. The effects of the revolution were somewhat negative, as schools shut down for the government to cleanse them of westernization, and the economy began to decline. Arts and mediums such as movies and music were looked into, but it was all for the government to reinstate an identity for the nation of Iran. Iran-Iraq War. After all the calamity and chaos of the Iranian Revolution, Iran soon entered a war with its neighboring country Iraq on September 22, 1980. Iraq invaded Iran in hopes of taking over Iran and spreading its influence, and they believed Iran to be vulnerable following the revolution for such reasons as Iran alienating itself from greater allied nations like the Soviet Union. The war lasted for 8 years and ended in a stalemate. An estimated 1.5 million were killed. Let's do a quick recap. The Iranian Revolution was a conflict between the people of Iran who desired a proper Islamic state and the Shah Pahlavi. For decades, an overwhelming number of Iranians believed Pahlavi to be a poor leader and was taking Iran in the wrong direction. By the late 1970s, the revolution took place, resulting in the ousting of Pahlavi and Ayatollah Khamenei's rise to power. Under Khamenei, Iran began to return to a traditional Islamic state, but they faced many challenges, including the hostage crisis and the war with Iraq. What we can take away from this is that the Iranian Revolution was a turning point for not just Iran, but the rest of the world, and has greatly changed the course of history.